All right, we are back. Another year, another Derby, another Kentucky Oaks. I'm Dan Tordjman with America's Best Racing, joined again by Christina Blacker and Scott Coles to handicap with Race Lens, the most powerful tool in the game. We're going to take a look at the Kentucky Oaks. We're going to take a look at the Kentucky Derby. And then Christina, Scott, and I will each pick an additional race to talk about where we like a horse or sometimes two horses using Race Lens. I will say, as you're watching this show, you're going to feel compelled to sign up for a Race Lens subscription if you don't already have one. And so I will let you know that now is absolutely the time. You can get an unlimited Race Lens subscriptions for just $1. New customers can use promo code RLM1S, and that'll give you a month-long test drive of Race Lens for just $1. Also, you can get an unlimited quarterly Race Lens subscription for $99. That's one price, every card for a quarter of the year for $99. Use promo code TCRL99. We'll remind you of that again at the end. But again, as you're watching us go through all this, showing you how you can utilize the specific angles, the various searches available, the other tools that are built into Race Lens, you're gonna wanna know more. Trust us. We've been through this once or twice. So let's start on Friday. We've got the Kentucky Oaks up for you. You see right there, 14 horses in the main body of the field. We are highlighting South Lawn because Christina likes South Lawn. And Christina, tell us why.
I do. And first of all, on that first page, there was a lot of green, right? A lot of green, a lot of good angles. So if you are someone that subscribes to Race Lens, or if you have those angles yourself pre-populated, it's already telling you kind of where to look, which horses to consider. So I went back and forth on a couple of horses in here, and South Lawn was one of them, obviously. The other horse was Wet Paint, who is the 5-2 morning line choice. But ultimately, I settled on South Lawn, and I want to start just looking at her form, because you can see, looking at the bottom half of her form, looking at those 2-year-old races, they're not great. She did break her maiden on July 31st. She broke it pretty impressively by 5 lengths over at Ellis. But then as she came through kind of the second half of her 2-year-old season, she was 7th by 13 in the grade 3 Pocahontas at Churchill. She was 9th. She was 5th. There isn't really a whole lot to get excited about in her 2-year-old form. But Norm Cassie has been very candid about her campaign and about the time that she spent away from the races. She had myectomy, which is a throat surgery. And if you can look at her form just as a 3-year-old after that, she's clearly changed. This is something that she needed, and it's really turned things around for her. So I'm going to isolate just her 3-year-old form and use that in my handicapping to try and, project what she'll do for this weekend and for Friday. She enters off a career best equibase speed figure. As you can see, it's highlighted there in green for you. The 102, very, very good race for her. It's the highest in the race. It's highest for her. She gets a lot of class rating out of that. Also, her recent works look pretty good. I'm looking down at the bottom of her page there and seeing that her works here at Churchill, that April 20th work, are pretty fast. And that was a big part of why I chose her, because her races at Churchill at 2 years old were very, very poor. And I think Churchill is one of those courses where the horse for course angle really comes into play. But the fact that I think she's a different horse since the surgery, I like her works here at Churchill as of late, kind of pushed me in her direction. And then at the top, you see those trainer stats, and this is kind of like your cheat sheet, your shortcut. There's a lot of green in there, lots to look forward to. Distance and surface, Norm Cassie does well at 23%. Off a little bit of a layoff, 17%. This is a good stat for him. Won there last start, 24%. There's just a lot of positives about him in this circumstance that we're dealing with her. I already mentioned Churchill form being a little bit of a concern, but I do want to open the pace projector and just take a look at where we think she might sit in the race, because Wet Paint to me is a very deserving morning line favorite. The 7 horse, she's 5-2. But if I'm looking at the pace projector, Wet Paint's going to be further back. She's more of a closer. And I think we're going to have a pretty decent pace in the Oaks this year. And South Lawn, she's the 4. I think she's going to get a jump on Wet Paint. And I think that's a good thing for her as we, obviously turn for home and hope to see her coming home with the group. Botanical to me is really the X factor in this group. If we can go back to her past performances, she's one that has been exclusively on synthetic in her last several races. She hasn't been on the main track. If she transfers that form to the main track, she is going to be unstoppable in this race, but that's a big question mark. So I think she's going to get bet Botanical. I think a lot of people are on this horse. And I thought South Lawn has just as much sort of blue sky potential if you're factoring in all of the changes that happened for her through that 2-year-old season. And maybe she runs her best race. And I think her best race pace wise versus the favorite, and with the sort of solid knowledge that she likes dirt, pushed me in her direction.
So I didn't know about throat surgery. That's really interesting. That's good information. And that, potentially explains the turn in form. Also, she was on the turf, obviously, before the last 2 races of 2022. So moving back to the dirt with South Lawn specifically, she's looked like a completely different horse. And then with Botanical, my only concern there was, I feel like I'm going to sound like Ellis here, but like, I don't want to take a horse at a short price trying something new, right?
Right.
Like, I mean, that's my concern there. Yeah, like if you handicap this without morning line odds, you're like, oh my God, I'm going to get such a juicy price on Botanical. You might still, it remains to be seen. We'll see how the wagering goes. Scott, where did you land here?
So I did land on wet paint. Usually not crazy excited to bet closers, and especially deeper closers as favorites, but I just keep watching the replays and I'm just so impressed every time. I mean, if you look at the PPs, I mean, since Pratt took over, I mean, 3 for 3 and just seems to time and fit this horse so perfectly. Just everything he asks her to do, she does it. She passes horses with ease, and it's really weird. I couldn't come up with a better term than push button closer, but every time he like asks if start creeping up, she's just passing horses without even so effortlessly. I do worry a little bit that somebody's, with the more quality, if somebody gets the jump and she gets stuck at all, I mean, it easily could be a tough way to come all the way around. But I just, every time I watch this horse, I'm really excited. And when you look at the PPs and show the green highlight, I think that's kind of important, not because it is the highest for the horse necessarily. Peak form is always great, but also I was worried. I wanted to see her do it on a fast track. I mean, when you put up 2 big numbers on a sloppy track, it's always concerning if that is what is aiding it. So now we've done it on both surfaces, no matter what the weather is. Looks like, as you guys were talking about earlier off camera, that we hopefully will not have any weather until after Oaks Day. So the fast track, best figure, kind of just improving, all those things kind of added up for me. That's what I'm looking for. If you show the true odds screen and sort by late pace, there we go. You'll see second to Botanical. Now Botanical's pace figures are coming on a surface where late pace, those are usually a little bit higher. If that translates from synthetic to dirt, I mean, that horse could just blow this field away. I mean, who knows? I mean, some of those races are very good, but the dirt is such a question mark. It's kind of why I landed on wet paint as far as the proven dirt. I think we're yet to see wet paint's peak. And also, if you look, another cool thing about the race projection is kind of sums it up for you underneath. Looks like there'll be some quick early fractions, which benefits closers. This horse has done it in all sorts of different paces and closing, but you got to think that can only help, especially in that last 16th of a mile. So, I mean, there's others for sure. This is just, this is where I ultimately landed, and I'll be singling on more tickets than not, but I'll be using a few others. I mean, Botanical, I still want to hear more. I want to see close to the race whatever like the experts are thinking about the works on dirt. I mean, that's my only question mark. The synthetic form is fantastic. Julia Shining, if she were to draw in the 16, I really thought that horse was improving and getting good, just didn't get enough points to get in the race. But I mean, higher last figure than my horse. So I just thought, if keep an eye and take an extra look at that horse. If for some reason you hear of that we're getting all the way down to the 16 on the AE list. If for people that like defining purpose, I mean, one thing to consider is did she just need a fast track? Is that kind of what propelled her forward, or is she going to bounce off that figure because it was just so much higher than her last race that you're a little bit worried? Something to consider. And then Christina's horse and a couple others in the Fairground Oaks, you kind of have to decide, do I like that race or do I not? Because if you don't, then you need to have some tickets that's kind of throwing that race out. But if you do, you kind of need to have at least some tries and some exactas and some things like that. If that ends up being the key race, you need to kind of group some of those horses together. So those are things I think about when betting it. I think just adding one more thing about South Lawn, you've kind of like double peaked here with all the changes. You even got the medical charts. I mean, where else are you going to get that? I mean, Christina's coming with the medical history. I mean, I just always feel
I'm
overmatched.
literally in the basement of the Cassie house right now.
I mean,
so if you want me to pull Norm in for like a little interview during the webinar, we can do that too.
I do have a few questions.
HIPAA doesn't apply to horses, right? I mean, you can just pull the charts right now.
Where else are you going to get that information? So the thing I like about South Lawn was the gallop out. I just don't think the extra distance is going to be a problem. Definitely a lot of upside there. Will not be leaving that one off. Pick fives, pick sixes, be a juicy price for kind of like the Oaks Derby double if you can kind of land a couple. So and Allie's look out of that race also. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. The Allie's look. Look. Been working with wet paint allegedly. I can't verify that. Christina probably can. She was probably there.
Yeah, they've been together.
So that's encouraging. My question would, I don't know. Was that the wide trip in the last race, is that enough to make up the ground on South Lawn with how strongly South Lawn finished? I'm not sure. That's just another horse that I would take a look at. So that's kind of where I'm at.
You know, in terms of the trip in that race, I mean, the horse that I like, and you said it, right? I mean, you either like that race or you don't. And I like South Lawn as well. And I actually like Pretty Mischievous as well, who finished second there. You know, I think she might have moved just a bit early. You know, she finished up with a lot more in the Rachel Alexandra with Tyler up the race prior. And then you could see that, you know, Tyler's going to be back for this race. I think you might have a better fit there with Tyler. And this horse gets overlooked with the wide draw, I think, a little bit. You may get that 10-1. And this is a horse who went off as a favorite in the Fairground Oaks. And so, you know, I think this is one who's kind of just laying there, you know, waiting to run a big race. And you got the two big races at Churchill, obviously, to start her career, too.
Yeah. And I mean, outside of it's just, people are going to be scared of that post. I mean, and I'm scared of it a little bit just because she's going to need to use speed early. And that's just, if she gets stuck or fanned out, I mean, that you're just ended up really wide into that first turn. And that is concerning. But I mean, if that horse, drew inside a little bit more, I mean, we'd be looking at it a lot harder.
I interviewed Brandon Walsh today because I was curious why he put the blinkers on and wondering what they wanted to do. Because I'm wondering if from the outside post, are they going to sort of send her up there and try to put her on the lead? Because it looks like there's a lot of pace in this race. But he said he doesn't really want to send her. He wants her to kind of tuck in, maybe fourth, fifth is a fine position. But he's hoping that the blinkers are going to help her more late, and felt like she lost focus a little bit in the Fairgrounds Oaks. And that's why they added the equipment for her. But to your point, Scott, the post position was really what scared me away from her. I think she is going to get hung out wide, and she's a daughter of Into Mischief. And even though she's run well at the Mountain of 16th, is she going to get there at the Mountain 8th, or is she going to get late? And then late because she's been wide, that's kind of a double whammy on her chances to me.
Yeah, I like her underneath. I mean, I think if she goes off 15-1 somewhere in that range, which I think is a possibility, but because I think Botanical is going to take a ton of money, Wet Paint's going to take a ton of money, and then also the horse on the rail, which we haven't talked about, Mimi Kikuchi, not a great draw either, but I feel in terms, and again, Christina, before I get to the horse, I really like in this race. What are you hearing on site about Mimi? Because what I'm hearing from here, and I'm a long ways away, is that this is the Japanese horse they're most excited about. Forget about Derma Sotogake and Continuar. This is the horse that everyone thinks is going to be is the real deal.
So I've heard that as well, but I have to say, when I saw her, she's tiny. I was a little bit underwhelmed by her kind of physical presence. She's a daughter of City of Light. She has done well at the Mountain 316. So we're, right there at the Mountain 8th distance. But I was not blown away by her myself. And if I look at the Thorograph figures quite a bit when I'm handicapping, her numbers that she's earned in Dubai are not quite fast enough to compete with the horses here and what they've done. And when you compare that against what Dermot Sotogake earned in Dubai versus the races here, I mean, he looks like he's right there with the favorites, right there with the fortes of the class, and maybe even faster than them. So I would have liked to have seen her figure come back a little bit more impressive off that last race, and especially the last few races, to give her a bigger chance against the group here.
Yeah. And by the way, this horse is not Japanese at all, just sounds Japanese, and also just raced in Dubai, like like Derma and like Continue are. But that's interesting. And in terms of speed, like I did see a couple of comments saying that she does have good early foot, like to where, I mean, the horses outside of her if they don't seem to have a ton of pace, that one hole may not hurt her as much. She can kind of at least secure position on the rail. Maybe she's sitting behind the horse who I think goes to the lead and potentially could wire this field, and that is the 10 horse. So I'm not going to come on here and give you any favorites. Like I just don't do it. So
Especially against your religion.
It totally against it. Scott made a joke when I sent the pic there. He's like, good to know, I can count on you for this. So if we look at the race projection, we took a peek at it earlier on the True Odds page, just kind of gives you, how Raceland sees this race unfolding. And sort of on the top right-hand corner there, you could see how they envision them going into the first turn and coming out of it. And that's the 10 right there. That's Flying Connection. Pretty clear cut on the lead with some distance between that chicklet and the 6 of Botanical. And I think just from watching the races, both Botanical and Flying Connection, I think Flying Connection is indeed faster. Moving over just to this other chart you see on the left here with the odds, and then you have the adjusted true odds and the true odds. So these are odds that are essentially what Racelens thinks are fair odds or accurate odds for the horses to win. And for Flying Connection, you've got 10-1 on Flying Connection compared to the 15-1 in the morning line. Also want to mention Florent Giroux has won this race twice. He's aboard. You may have noticed if you've watched racing for a couple of years, Florent Giroux tends to go to the front and does it with ease in these kinds of races. And so he's done it a million times. He's going to go right to the front with this horse. I have no doubt that she is going to get there. My question is whether she's going to stay there. But I think for the price she's going to be, I'm willing to take a shot. When you take a look at the Equibase speed figures, those last 3 races, you see 89, 95, 101, getting better and better and better, progressive. The number there, that 101, that's 4 points higher than Wet Paint's best Equibase speed figure. So Wet Paint tops out at 97, Flying Connection tops out at 101. So the only time, if you look at all the races there, last 5 starts, only time that she didn't win, she stumbled coming out of the gate and she took up, and you could see there's that red little marker there. Anytime you're using Racelens, and if you're like, oh man, what happened to this horse? Why did this horse not run well? If you look over to the right and you see a red triangle, you might want to watch that replay, which you can do on the left-hand side. And in watching that replay, you'll see exactly the stumble. Now, we don't have to watch it right now. We're going to get into some other replays as we move on, but worth taking a closer look at that race. I thought she had an excuse there, and other than that loss, I mean, she's been just about perfect. Concerns. I have one concern, and this comes from pedigree search here, looking at Nyquist. If you look at really all the sires in this race, the stallions in this race for the past 5 years, and you could specifically search for a mile and an eighth for 3-year-olds in graded stakes, Nyquist, 15 starters in this sort of situation, 1 winner. It's a smallish sample. I'd like to see better than 1 for 15. And then if you could broaden out, you look at the rest of the field, you have that option just 1 click away. You see some of the others here. You look at the Pioneer, the Nile on the 4, 1 for 25. A little concerning, maybe. I don't know. It is what it is. I mean, I tend to do these searches just to kind of like make myself feel better if I'm on a horse. This didn't make me feel any better. I'm also not willing to disqualify either of these horses too. You got to look at the bottom half too. And there was not like a large enough sample for me to kind of come to any sort of conclusions. But that's another thing you could do with race lens. I just wanted to at least show you that feature. And that's it. Flying Connection, 2 for 2 going long, has the speed to go from the 10 post. Giroux has won this race twice, gonna get her to the front. And I think if you want a horse at 20-1 who could at the very least hang on for a slice, Flying Connection is the horse. Christina, Scott, am I nuts?
No, you're not at all.
Okay.
No, you're not. Caleb Keller, who works with us at FanDuel TV, loves this horse. And he's like a handicapper that I really respect because he finds the sort of crazy secret information, or he remembers. He's like Rain Man. He remembers the weirdest connections to different things. And he loves this horse. And I think Florent Giroux is the best in that circumstance. He's the best at like nursing speed along the front end. You think back to Monomoy Girl, you think back to other horses that he's been on. In this circumstance, I can see it. You've sold me on her for sure. She's on all tickets.
Cool. Scott, you can tell me I'm crazy offline. I want to ask you a different question though, and that is Wonder Wheel. What do we do with Wonder Wheel?
Yeah, good question. I have no idea. I mean, been ridden by Tyler her whole career now gets Rosario. Maybe something with the tactics like kind of wakes this horse up. But I mean, I've just never been able to figure this horse out. The only time I guess when she won the juvenile fillies, I mean, I just wasn't on her that day, and then tried to warm up to her and then lost twice. I mean, I didn't run particularly well in the Ashland. I just don't really know.
I think
I don't know
she
what
is
to do
what
with her.
she is. I think
which is
she was good at 2, but she's not any better.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
But is 2 races enough to say that? Like, hey, you know what? You're just not going to take that next step.
Probably.
I think so, because I think
Yeah.
even back to her 2-year-old form, some of these horses were faster at 2. I think it all worked out for her and everything fell into place in the Breeders' Cup. But she's basically run the same race every time, and sometimes it's good enough to beat her competition, but it's not going to be good enough on Friday if half of these horses run back to their best race. I think the Alice Look is better. I think South Lawn is better. I think Botanical is better. Wet Pain is better. Even Promise Her America ran a big figure in the Gazelle. I mean, she's just one of those that hasn't really progressed from 2 to 3.
All right. Well, we shall see. I know a couple of people who are still in love with Wonder Wheel, and they'd like to see her return to form.
Did they make money on her in the juvenile fillies, and that's why?
It could be. I mean, look, she's a cool horse. I mean, and it's Mark Casse, and it's all that fun stuff. But look, I think she's cool. She's gonna have to. I think to your point, Christina, like there are not only other horses that are in better form right now. There are horses who seem to be trending this way. They're going up, and Wonder Wheel is just like flat or going down. So there's you got to take all that into account. So. Anyhow, the Kentucky Oaks Friday. Make sure you are down and ready to bet that race. I'm excited. I think it's a fun betting race. There's no real, to my eyes, except for you can make the argument for Wet Paint, but even Wet Paint, I don't think is going to be the sort of clear-cut favorite that we've seen in past years. I think it's a pretty open edition, and it makes for a really fun betting race. So we'll see how that unfolds. We move on to Saturday. As Scott alluded to a couple minutes ago, we're looking at the weather forecast. At the time that we're recording this right now, there's a chance for rain late Friday, maybe early Saturday. Keep monitoring all that stuff. But based on what we're seeing right now, it doesn't sound like there's going to be some deluge where there's going to be a ton of water that completely, turns everything into this pool. And from what Christina said earlier, it sounds like the turf is fairly solid, rock solid right now. So it's going to take quite a bit to change the turf course. But we'll start with the 4th race on Saturday. This is where Scott has a horse that he thinks you can absolutely single early on. So Scott, who is it?
Yeah, it's pretty genius. I know I'm gonna get a lot of heat for this, but this is my style, so this is what we're gonna do. Okay, everybody who starts the Derby, we need to. Some people like to build that bankroll in the morning, and that's what I like to do. So I kind of get aggressive, but pretty skinny early in the day, and I feel like just Goodnight Olive is a standout, assuming nothing goes wrong. And there's a few reasons why. So I mean, everything we're gonna see here, I feel like we can sum this up on the True Odds page. So highest late pace in the race. Then you move over to the race projection, and it's showing her right up there with the leaders early. There's not a whole lot of pace unless Travel Column tries to just absolutely go nuts early, or maybe Hot and Sultry will get really aggressive. But either way, plenty of speed, seems to always break. I know I just jinxed it. She'll be right up there and will have options from the start. When you have a horse with this classy, second off a layoff, with the highest late pace figure, and everything you're seeing here, a small field, a couple horses, and I think the 6 and the 4 that you can kind of safely toss. And you just have a situation where your odds are very high to get a single home early, link it up as in doubles, hit an ice cold exacta for Dave Weaver, do something. But it's just a horse that I've always been a huge fan of, and ran huge on Breeders' Cup Day. Obviously came back and kind of veered in a little bit, but as soon as she was pointed at that other horse, she was like, not today. And just has so much fight in her, has proven the ability to fight through in big fields, small fields, just does everything, is on a just massive winning streak. The only question I guess would be if you see works that she's not handling the Churchill surface, would be my only concern. But on paper, I mean, this is everything I love. I did a lot of work with Wicked Halo versus Mediterranean. I really think Wicked Halo is kind of moved past that horse, so I'm strongly considering a 2-3 ice cold exacta. But I want to learn more about the one. I want to see the works, because I'm also interested in Hot and Sultry as kind of being a wild card, huge jockey upgrade in Rosario, and just those are the two I'd look out for. But I kind of think that I'm going to play a lot of like doubles in and out, and some cold exactas and tries, and just try to build some bank on a day where you always get overpaid. I know everyone's going to laugh because this horse could be 2 to 5, but other horses take money for random reasons. Keep an eye on the board, see where the doubles value is, where they don't make sense, and kind of look. There'll be value to this horse some way, and you just kind of got to be mindful of what's going on, and that there's a lot of dead money in these pools, and kind of just take advantage of it. Any horse you love, there's ways to make money a lot more than a normal day, because of how much dead money is in these pools, and how many celebrities are out there just winging dollars and have no idea what they're doing.
And by that you mean who? Name some celebrities that you think are just throwing money. I'm kidding.
I have no idea where the money's coming from. Christina probably does. She's probably there at the window right next to them when they're betting it. But
well, that's why the My Boy Jacks of the world are the second choice in the Derby sometimes, because a lot of people have a son named Jack, and then they bet that horse.
Go.
Yeah, I have a lot to say on that later when we do the Derby. Yeah,
but confidence game is going to be that horse this year.
It feels like it, right? All right, that's a little tease. We're coming back to that. By the way, this is not only a single for the early pick 5, it's also the single for that next pick 5, which starts in race 4.
Yeah, so links into a lot of good stuff.
A lot of good stuff. So what Scott's saying is go all. Goodnight Olive, all. Just kidding. Do not do that. Do some handicapping. Do not do that. You have any thoughts on this race, Christina? Or you want to jump into your race?
I mean, I love her. I've always loved her. I totally agree. And I think on a day like Friday and Saturday, when you have a horse like that, where you really feel like you found a lock, to Scott's point, just work that to your advantage. Find your price somewhere else and use that in other exotics to bring home money in that way.
Yep. All right, let's make money on your race, Christina. This is your bonus race. It's the 9th race. It's the American Turf. And you like a horse here who, when I initially saw the price, I was like, "Oh, nice, little price." And then I was looking at this horse, and I feel like people keep saying this horse is not going to be this high. This horse going to get bet down. So first tell us about the horse, and then tell me about what do you think the horse is going to go off at?
No, it's possible. You might be right. But I think that in this race, there's a lot of horses that are interesting at a price. So the American Turf is race number 9. It's part of that pick 5 that you mentioned. If you want to use Goodnight Olive to get here, it's also part of a pick 4. It's the first leg ending in the Derby. So you can use this race if you want to get skinny and single, or if you want to use a few horses here and you really like a horse in the Kentucky Derby, you can do that as well. It's tough. So I'm going to pick Talk of the Nation, the 4. And there's a couple things I like about him. If you look at his form, he began on the main track in his first couple of starts. Then he jumps onto the turf and he's 2 for 2 on the grass. So he ran well first time out. He showed that he has some class, but now I'm just going to isolate his turf form and call him undefeated, because that's what we're seeing in his last few races. The angle I have is on Tyler Gaffleone. He's one of my favorite riders. I talk about him all the time, and especially on the turf course. I think for a young rider, not only is he very physically strong, but I think he also just makes a lot of smart moves. He saves ground all the time. Actually watched him ride today, and it was a main track race, but he pulled the Irad Ortiz on Irad Ortiz. The floating, the race riding, he is very aggressive, but in a safe way. And I think he's just one of the best riders that we have in the country, honestly. He's at 23% in turf routes at Churchill Downs. He's made this his home. You can see 21%, I should say. Does very, very well here. And he's consistently just at the top of the standings, whether he's your leading rider or whether he is, second or third here at Churchill, also over at Keeneland, same to be said down in South Florida, does very, very well. I also went to the True Odds page because there were a few prices in this race. I'll say I really like Johannes as well. He's the 5, the Southern California horse. I watched him schooled today, and he is one of those horses that I would describe. He's like a cat. He's just so agile, and the way he moves, even when he walks, you can tell that he's a horse with a lot of ability. But when I got to the True Odds page and then I filtered for late pace, which is always a figure that I love, always a figure that I look at on the turf, he's your fastest closer, your fastest finisher in this race. I think he'll get a pretty decent trip. I know he has the tactical speed to sort of keep up with these horses. The only blemish on his resume was that one random race at Gulfstream going 1 turn on the main track. I think he closes, and I think he finishes very, very well in this group. He also does pretty well in 3-year-old turf stakes. He's at 18%. When you stack that up against the Chad Browns of the world, who get a lot of turf horses, I think it doesn't look as strong. But I think if you consider the horses that should get, there's a lot more dirt kind of coming into his barn, and that's good enough for me. I did want to mention Johannes. I kind of touched on him for a second. He is the 5-horse drawn just to the outside. He's been one of those horses that I describe when I'm kind of on FanDuel TV as electric. I think to be a really good turf horse, and especially to be a good mile and a 16th type, you have to have that kind of turn of foot where just nobody's going to catch you. He's translated that sprint form to route form, and he's just as good. He's just as fast, finishing just as strong in his races. So I don't think the added distance will be any kind of a problem for him. And then the last horse I'll mention, and I think he's going to take a lot of money, is the 1, Major Dude. Major Dude has been working with Kingsbarns in the morning. He's right there, kind of heads up with one of your Derby runners. So he's going to get bet. He might even be the favorite, honestly, when all is said and done. But it's a very, very good race. I do think you need some coverage, but I love the price on Talk of the Nation. I love the price on Johannes. I would use both of those along with a handful of others. But in the end, if you had to kind of narrow it down, 4-horse would be the top pick.
I can't tell you how many times over the years Christina's bonus race has been spot on. So seriously, if you take nothing else from this entire show, just listen to Christina and then just ignore everything else. She's money.
That that one sentence.
No, you're money. You're money. You always
Say
are.
that.
Your bonus race is I haven't done the research, but it's 92% at least.
Thank you.
In the money at least. In the money, 92%. Can we go back to the True Odds page 1 second? I just want to see if we could just do the True Odds. I'm just curious again, just to that point of how do we think, what is this board going to look like? Could we adjust for True Odds? Yeah. So, geez.
I mean, who would want to make this line?
Wow.
Oh my.
How would you make this line? I mean, it's insane. I think Major Dude takes a ton of money because of the working Pletcher and the IRAD, but the rest, how do you make this line?
It's so tough. It's so tough. And talk of the nation's 12-1 here. So we'll see how this horse actually gets bet. It just seems like the horse has become like a little bit of like, Christina, you've been
The wise
like,
guy. Yeah.
yeah, like you've been out in the field, so I don't know if you've seen a lot of the stuff on Twitter specifically, but people are just all sorts of buzzing about this horse. And
But I mean, that's in the face of like Farbridge is 2 for 2. Mendelssohn's March should get better getting back on the turf course and wasn't far off Tapit Trice. I mean, there's an angle on so many horses in this field.
Yeah,
there's a lot of reasons to like anybody in here.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to hop to race 10 because I know everybody wants to get to the Kentucky Derby. So let me just roll through by bonus race here. Race 10 is a race where you have a clear-cut favorite, and that's Cody's Wish. So, of course, I'm going to try to beat Cody's Wish because Cody's Wish is making his first start of the year. And as much as I love Cody's Wish and I love the story of Cody's Wish, I think this is an opportunity to potentially capitalize on the fact that it is his first start of the year. And maybe we could find a horse that is kind of peaking right now and who can win. But before we dive into it, trainer search. So I just did a thing where I said past 5 years, I want to know stakes races on this particular circuit, so the Kentucky circuit. So you're dealing, with Churchill, you're dealing with Keeneland, maybe occasionally a race at Turfway. And so when you do that search for trainers, past 5 years, all stakes, today's circuit, I think it's in there somewhere. There it is. Saffie Joseph, 39 starters, 0 wins in Kentucky. A little concerning. Slightly concerning, especially because he has a horse in White Barrio who people are going to actually bet. White Barrio is a really fun horse, loves Gulfstream Park, is 0 for 2 at Churchill Downs, and his trainer's 0 for 39 on the Kentucky circuit at stakes races. So concerning there. Now, you can, again, expand out, look at some of how the other trainers do on the circuit. Number 7, you could see 7, of course, is going to be Cody's Wish, and that's Bill Mott. No surprise that he is Mr. Kentucky, right? I mean, he dominates here, right? He always wins big races on the Kentucky circuit. So you see his numbers are good. Now, randomly, Bobby DeBona. Who expected Bobby DeBona to have had 2 starters? I mean, not a massive sample, but 2 starters with a win, and the other horse running honestly. And so the horse who won is Steel Sunshine, who's the horse that actually comes back in this race and who I like quite a bit. Irad Ortiz will be riding here, rode him last out in a race that he finished, about half a length off, 7 furlongs on Sir Shackleton. If you look at his 3 races at 7 furlongs, won the Carryback Stakes at Gulfstream last July, was 3rd in the Mr. Prospector, but note the trouble indicator there as well, was 3rd in the Sir Shackleton, as I mentioned, last out, and really came flying in that race. He could have easily won that last race, and he ran his 2nd best career number there. That's what that yellow highlight is. Whenever you see the yellow highlight, it's the 2nd best career number for the horse. The green one, as Scott mentioned earlier, is the career best. And then if we just go back to late pace numbers, has a 118.5. I believe that's the co-second favorite behind Cody's Wish. So yeah, so it's Steel Sunshine and Hear My Song. Both of them have the 2 highest late pace figures aside from Cody's Wish. So interested in both of them, and both of them are 30-1. So just going to Hear My Song, we go back to the PPs. This is a horse who ran a career best equibase speed figure last out, ran 100, I believe. Let's see, 102. I thought it was the career best last out. Never mind, I was wrong on that. But either way, his Churchill race, yeah, his Churchill race was one of his best races right there. Yeah, so there you go. So has form over the track. He's run well in 2 other Churchill Down races as well, and then won the Commonwealth last out from a pretty wide draw, and that was the first time that Alex Achard had been up in 5 races. And if you look at Achard back, in some of those previous races, he's getting the most out of this horse. He's away for a few starts. You got some sort of mixed results, comes back and he wins. So he's coming back here and running him again. These are 2 super live long shots. I think this race could get really, really funky. Like, there's the pace picture is a little muddled. I think the 8 Fortin Hill is potentially a clear-cut speed horse here if you get out to the front and might stay there for a while. But beyond that, it could be anything. And so if you don't think that Cody's Wish is ready to fire first back, you know, you could go a number of different places, and I'm just giving you a couple of 30-1 shots. 11, Steel Sunshine. The 3, Hear My Song. And then, of course, Endorse, you got to respect. I mean, Endorse seems to show up with the race every single time. Endorse is the 10 horse, and typically, you know, runs his race. So a couple places to go. Of course, as I promised, I would only pick long shots. So that's where I was. And just wait till you hear my
love
Derby
Bobby
pick.
Bona, by the way. He's one of my favorite trainers.
Is he?
High percentage, very selective. He's in Florida. He's in New York. Only keeps a few horses, but keeps good horses. He doesn't kind of spend time with horses that he doesn't think can be of stakes caliber. He's an excellent trainer.
Have you like hung out with him or worked with him or anything
I've
like that?
interviewed him quite a bit, yeah, and just spent time kind of around the barn in New York. I will say I think he's best on the turf. I know we're on track here, but he's an excellent conditioner and just real like attentive to detail and does what he wants. Carrie Brogdon is a breeder. She runs Mockmore Hall. She owns Steel Sunshine. So to me, someone like that who has so much horsemanship herself to give a horse to a guy like Bobby DeBona, it's just an extra endorsement of a trainer like him.
There's something here. There's definitely something here. I mean, this horse gonna run a race.
They got IRAD to ride, so there goes your your third. That's over. But I mean, that's always encouraging, right?
Yeah,
he's not gonna just do that for fun. I mean,
yeah. No, there's definitely there's something going on here. This horse is gonna run a big race, 30-1.
Not a chance.
And we'll see. Fingers crossed. 20-1, maybe 20-1. We'll take that. All right, let's move on to the Kentucky Derby. It's race 12 on Saturday. Scott going with a pick that initially surprised me. He's going to go with a couple of horses, but I like your logic here ultimately with why you landed here. Sort of the whole, you know, check out the company he's been keeping kind of argument. But also, I mean, there's more to it. So why don't you go jump into Mage? Tell us why Mage has a big shot in the Derby.
So I mean, if you look at the PPs, now I hate taking lightly raced horses, and I keep falling into the same trap. I mean, been plenty of good ones like Rock Your World and Charge It, and all these horses that I've fallen for lately. That it just, the problem is without the experience, they can get intimidated, they can get nervous, they can miss the break. This horse has already had trouble breaking. That's where my concern is. But if we're handicapping this, assuming that the horse breaks.
This is a hell of an endorsement already, Scott.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's how confident I am in the Derby with the all button I'm going to hit. But hoping all my singles for the 5 races before the Derby are correct, and I'm just sitting waiting to see who wins.
I love it. I love it.
But I mean, so your Derby favorite is, I mean, unless you guys have heard otherwise, I would assume is going to be Forte. I mean, I think
yeah, it's Forte.
I like Forte. I think Forte is solid. I'm not leaving Forte off my tickets. I just think it's encouraging when you look at the replay of the Florida Derby making a third lifetime start and how close this race was. And you'll notice, I mean, the 4 horse is Mage and is going to break dead last. I believe Forte was the 11. I probably should have wrote that down. But I mean, so you got the 4 kind of.
Yeah, he's the 11 in the Florida.
Yeah, just struggling back here. I mean, not that Forte's got it great. I mean, Forte has to wait a long time to kind of come over. But I mean, Mage wants to be close, and Mage dropped dead last. So from that perspective, I mean, you're already behind the 8 ball against the Derby favorite, and you're going to see, I mean, the timing of it maybe wasn't perfect, but because of where you broke, you kind of had to make your move somewhere. And all of a sudden you're going to see that 4 fly by the 11 Forte and kind of start circling the field and make this very aggressive move in the middle of the race. I mean, and again, we're in a 3rd career start. We're already behind. It's not the running style I want. At least I hope this doesn't fool them into thinking that this is a deep closer, because then I change my pick completely. If they intentionally take this horse back, I'm out. But if they go for, I mean, there's not that many speed horses in this Derby. And historically, if you take away a couple weird things that have happened lately, I mean, you want to be close in the Derby. And the amount of ground, I mean, this horse had to make up and does it. I'd say, I mean, fairly easily, but it's aggressive. I mean, you waste so much energy when you have to make this type of sustained run around the turn. Rarely are there horses outside of Arrogate, maybe that crazy overseas race where he like broke dead last and kind of swept the field and was able to sustain it and just blow people away. I mean, coming wide and Forte is just sitting behind, hasn't had as much energy left, and is going to ultimately run him down. But does he break clean? Is he like, how much work would Forte have had to do if this horse broke?
Whether this is the most like unintentionally dramatic replay we've ever showed.
Yeah.
Like,
So,
like,
I mean,
like we didn't mean for it to look this dramatic.
yeah,
for
I
you.
mean, so I mean, you get run down, and Forte doesn't look like he's working all that hard. And I'm not convinced he was fully cranked, but I just want people to, the odds were going to be quite wide between those two, I would think. I mean, especially with, I mean, Saya's off. I'd almost rather Saya still be on because he is usually pretty aggressive. We'll see what Castellano does. I mean, you're still getting a Hall of Fame jockey, and if they can keep this horse close, take a step forward and breaks, that's a lot of ifs, but this horse is talented enough to be right there. And in a race where I'm not in love with Forte's running style either. In this type of year, I mean, I want a price. I'm going to use a lot of horses, but this is just one I'm interested in. I think people should kind of pay attention to the trip because, I mean, if Mage breaks that day and runs forward, I mean, how does Mage win that race? And how cranked was Forte? Those are the questions you have to answer. But and I'm sure Christina probably has more detailed information about how cranked Forte was that day because she has all the tidbits. But I mean, I'm interested. If you go to the True Odds page and you sort by run style, in the history of the Derbies, you want to be fairly close, and turning for home, you better be close to that first flight, with the exception of weird things like last year. I can't explain last year. But what I am excited about is last year is that people are going to think last year is going to happen every year. And there's going to be a lot of money coming in on deep closers. And there's going to be a lot of money coming in on horses that, are just absolute bombs because people want to get paid. It's just not really been the case. There's been a couple of weird things, a DQ, and then this year. And favorites have done well in this race. We'll see how much money. Mage is going to be in the middle, but favorites have done well if they've been forwardly placed. Forte is a bit tough for me to place here. So when you sort by running style, you just don't have, you have an AE. So like the cool thing about stats, if you hit that little I, you can take that horse out. So that horse is, unless that horse draws in, you've got one E, you've got a bunch of P's and S's, and people are going to have to make decisions. And I think Mage is kind of getting penalized because only running 3 starts on the software and you see one close. I mean, you kind of get thrown back, but I don't think that's where Mage wants to be. Mage drew a pretty nice post in 8, and I think can be forward and could get the jump on some of these. And I mean, you saw some of that kick. If you redisperse that energy better and you improve, this horse is improving. There's just a lot to like for me. And according to, race lens here, I mean, live odds could be closer into the 20s. That'd be great. I would love that. A lot of horses I'm going to use. My concern is that maybe he ends up being a 1-turn horse, but I mean, with Curlin and Big Brown and there's plenty of stamina there. I mean, we don't know. I hate taking a lightly raced horse. Like I said, I wouldn't single, but I'm excited about this horse.
Yeah. And I wonder, and Christina, Scott sort of teed you up a little bit, but I wonder, I'm just going to kind of reframe the question a little bit. What if Forte didn't finish up the way he did, and what if he finished third? I mean, does Mage go in as your second or third choice? Is Forte not your favorite? And also, I'll ask, did Forte actually re-kick, or did Mage and Cycle of Mischief just hit a wall?
That's a good question. I do think Forte re-kicked. I think Forte is a horse that he has multiple moves at different times, which is what to me is kind of his best weapon. Like, he's very responsive to his rider, but there's a part of me that thinks he hasn't really had to give his all yet because he's that good. And I think if you watched the Florida Derby, he looked like he was backing up a little bit, and then it was as if the light bulb kind of went on, and then he realized what he had to do. But to Scott's point, that move on the turn, I mean, very few horses can do that. Very few horses can run around other horses around the turn. Very few horses can run the turns that well, let alone trying to pass other horses. And yeah, it's a great argument, because if Mage draws well, or jumps well in the Florida Derby and he's closer, does Forte catch him? I don't know. I think you can easily say that. And if you were in South Florida at all this winter, everybody loved Mage. I'm actually surprised that he was as much of a price as he was his first few starts, because he was kind of the buzz horse like of the morning, and they all knew he could run. They all had big designs on having a horse like this in the Kentucky Derby, and I can see it. I can't talk you off Mage at all. I ended up on the 14 Angel of Empire in here, and I don't think we're going to get anywhere near the 8-1 on the
Oh,
morning
I've heard
line,
a
because
lot of
every
people I
time you
trust
turn
like that
around,
horse.
everybody likes this horse.
Yeah.
Like everybody likes this horse. I'll tell you why I like him. If you look at his form, you know, obviously he's coming in off of a couple of wins. So you see the victory in the Risen Star, you see the victory in the Arkansas Derby, and his work in the morning this week to me was the most impressive of any of these horses. And it wasn't just the work itself, it was his gallop out. I'm not always a big gallop out person when it comes to racing in the afternoon, because I think some horses are asked for it and some really aren't, and some are smart enough to just shut themselves down. But in a workout in the morning, when you're asking a horse for a gallop out, this was like monster. He is one of those horses that as the distances get longer, he's continuing to get better. But what I think he has that some of the others like Tapit Trice don't have is, I think he has a very high cruising speed. I think he covers a lot of ground very easily in the early stages, and he's really not even trying until they turn for home. I do want to pick up the replay of the Arkansas Derby, and we'll kind of fast forward until about a minute into this race, because his Risen Star, he dropped back pretty far off the pace, but his Arkansas Derby to me was a little bit different. And I think he made a bit of a middle move, and you're going to start to see him kind of creep up along the outside here under Flavien Prat, but he does it so easily. He's the 6 horse, and actually right where we grabbed it, that's where Flavien kind of drops his goggles. And that to me is a sign that the jockey is really relaxed and he knows that something else is coming. We're about to really ask this horse for his best run. I need a fresh pair of goggles, but I'm not having to physically ride him because I can afford to only have one hand on the reins and then switch that equipment. And just look at the way he picks up horses around the turns so easily. And it's similar to what you saw from Mage in the Florida Derby. It's not quite as much of a blitz of a move, but it's kind of more steady. But he's then going to really power home from here. And he pulls away from this field by 4 1/4 lengths. I think if you look at what Flavien Prat has done this year, traveling a lot for Brad Cox. Remember, he was on Victory Formation at one point. He's been on other 3-year-olds for him, and he ends up on this horse, and he's going to choose this horse to be his Derby mount. And I looked at those statistics with him and Brad in stakes races together. They're at 34%. We'll pull that angle for you over the last 5 years. Flavien was really kind of tactical when he decided to make his move back east. He had a lot of support from Chad Brown when he initially came. He has still continued to ride a lot of those turf horses, but it feels like his dirt kind of barn is Brad Cox. There they are, total starters, 36% win rate together. He's on the best horses from this barn, and I think he's, staying with this horse for a reason. I also went to the True Odds page because I always do. He has the fastest late pace figure of the field, so that was encouraging to me. And then I pulled an angle on his sire, Classic Empire. Classic Empire is at 29% on dirt at 9 furlongs and beyond. So I just kind of grabbed that distance because I want to know, he's already gone 9 furlongs with that mile and 8th Arkansas Derby. What happens when you kind of kick it a little bit clear? And it's a very positive ROI, as you can see. There's just a lot to like about Angel of Empire. I'm not crazy about the fact, as we kind of mentioned, that I don't think he's going to be anywhere near that. He might be the second choice. I think the draw really hurt Tapit Trice. I think Forte will be the favorite, but we might end up with 4 5-1 on this horse in the end, Dan.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think he's the second choice. Tapit Trice, for as much as he's accomplished, and he looks great, and again, he has the pedigree to run all day. Kind of feels to me, and I think to a lot of other people, it's potentially a Belmont horse. He's just, and you also get the sense that he's a little, he's got a personality, and he might act up a little bit. We don't know how he's going to act, but I think for that reason, and for the fact that Angel of Empire really hasn't done anything wrong in 3 races, I think you got to like him a lot, and he probably goes off as your second choice. Your third choice could potentially be Derma Sotogake. But I'm nowhere near that. I'm going to probably give you the 18th choice on the board. I'm going to give you a long shot here with my top selection, and it's going to be the 7 horse Reincarnate. I may pay for going back to this well yet again. I went with the Baftine horse last year, which didn't work for me. I was all about Teba and Messier. Didn't work last year, but I do feel like this is a different kind of horse. Like, this horse shows me something that those 2 horses didn't. And he shows me the 2 things that I look for in a Derby horse. And one is a horse that's able to overcome adversity, and also a horse who knows that he's actually in a race. And if you look at each of his races, and we're not going to show you all the replays, but if you look at, you watch the replays, and if you have access to Racelands, if you watch each replay, you'll see that he does something in that race that backs up one of those 2 things that we're looking for. You look at, for example, the Sham Stakes, just looking at the splits, first of all, he went 22-3, 45 and change, 109 and change. From where I'm sitting, it's a little too small for me to read exactly, but he went pretty fast. And I could tell you, if you watch the replay, he took pressure throughout, and it looked like right at the 8th pole, that he was about to get passed by at least 1, if not 2 horses. He would not let them go by. He dug in, and he won. And he won the race in a way that kind of conveyed to me, like, okay, this horse knows what's up. He sees these horses to his outside. He's not letting them go by. And interestingly, in the race that we just saw, the Arkansas Derby, he finished 3rd. He was 3rd throughout. 2nd, 3rd, he was there kind of vying between 2nd and 3rd. But once they hit the top of the stretch, there were about 7 horses that looked like they were going to absolutely consume him. He wasn't letting them go by. He was in his own separate race, and he would not let those horses go by. Now, the race we will look at is the Rebel Stakes. There are a couple of things here I want to point out. We're not going to show the whole race, but you're looking at the 6 horse here. He's going to get shuffled right after the break, and he kind of loses ground. And remember, this is a horse who the race prior had won in wire-to-wire fashion. Now, look at him getting squeezed. He's 3rd last. So he's completely taken out of his game here. And he's in a position here going into the first turn where he's like, oh my God, there are 10 horses in front of me. Now watch this move that he starts to make, even though he hasn't run from off the pace before. He's those light blue and pink silks up there. You can see him coming at the light blue. He's the 6 horse. He's kind of shifting outside right now. Here he comes. Oh, nope. You're not going there. He gets completely shut off, has to gather himself up, picks up his stride, and look how nicely he finishes. So is hit with adversity, taken out of his game from the start, again gets shut off at the end, nothing going right for him, and he runs on to finish 3rd. So all of that makes this horse to me seem like, just in terms of like what he's built with, like what he's made of, those are the things I want to see. If we go to the true odds page, just briefly, this horse is 50-1 in the morning line. If you adjust the true odds there, scroll down a little bit, you're looking at 19-1. And actually, I was expecting this horse to be 25-1 maybe. And so those numbers, 19-1 feels right. The one thing that I will sort of take issue with here is in the race projection, which has him about 3rd or 4th. Kingsbarns, I do not believe will be on the lead. He did a half in about 50 and change. And so he's not going to be there. I think he could be close, but he's not going to be there. You got a couple other horses there with a good amount of speed, but I think, again, if he runs back to that sham speed, he's got Johnny V up, who's done it wire to wire multiple times now in the Derby. If he gets to the front, I think there's a scenario in which he opens up 2 lengths going into the first turn, especially from the 7 post. Derma Sotogake, to me, looks like the 2nd fastest horse. I think he kind of comes up to his outside, tries to track from about a length or 2 off, like he did in the Saudi Derby. Now, in the Saudi Derby, Derma Sotogake let them run off too much, and that was such a speed bias track that he couldn't make up late ground, but he did close a little bit. If we go to number 17, Derma Sotogake, you will see that in the last race, he did, he said, the heck with all this. I'm going right to the front. I'm not going to try to chase down anyone. And he ends up winning by 5.5 lengths. But again, that was a super, super inside rail speed bias course. And so you got to take that with a grain of salt. All that being said, I think this is the best horse we've ever seen from Japan in the Derby. He's definitely the best UAE Derby winner. I feel like we probably said this once or twice, see Mendelssohn. And, so who knows? But if he breaks cleanly, I think he's up with that sort of, he's up forward with the pace, but he's not on the lead. I think Reincarnate is loose on the lead. I think he goes a long way up front. And I will say this, Reincarnate is 50 to 1 in the morning line. Every year I like to make one really strong prediction. This horse will not finish off the board. So you have that from me. It's guaranteed.
Big time.
Yeah, it's guaranteed. This horse does not finish off the board. I mean, he's going to the front and he's either holding on and winning, or he's going to have 1 or 2 horses pass him. And I think the horses, a couple of them that we've talked about who have the ability to pass them are Derma, Angel of Empire. I think if Mage takes a step forward, he could be that horse. Forte is going to have to make a move from off the pace and do it. Another horse that's interesting to me is the 2-horse Verifying. I didn't love this post, and I feel like if Verifying had drawn 9 or yeah. So I think if you had drawn better, you'd hear a lot of people talking about Verifying. No one's talking about it, but I just want to remind people that Tyler Gaffleone, who rides Verifying, rode a horse named War of Will in the controversial 2019 Kentucky Derby where Maximum Security got DQ'd. From the one post, and that's with the old gate, Tyler Gaffleone sat the best trip in the entire race. He was able to put War of Will in position on the rail, track, and he might have won the Kentucky Derby had he, not flipped heels and, had the whole incident happen. Tyler Gaffleone rode that race masterfully from the 1 hole. Now you got a different gate, and he's in the 2 post, and I don't think he has a ton of speed out in or outside of him, aside from potentially confidence game. So I think Verifying is a horse that you gotta not completely dismiss. He looks really honest to me, and if you like Tap and Trice at all, you obviously gotta like Verifying. So let's do this. I mean, let's go through the field. Let's go back. Let's go to the 1 hole. We want to do our we'll go around the room, and we'll find out if anybody has any.
We call it the lightning round.
The lightning round, yeah. Let's see if anyone has any love for Hit Show. Christina, Hit Show.
No, he's been so aggressive. He's in draw reins every morning. He's on the engine. The 1 post is going to kill him. I think he's going to melt down.
Ooh, okay. Scott?
No, I just wrote Meltdown by the horse's name. That's it. That's all I needed to hear.
Look, the horse is 30 to 1, so you know that I like him. I think he's pretty clearly the best horse coming out of New York. Had excuses when he didn't win the Wood. Didn't get any pace to run into in either of those preps, and he still ran extremely well. He's going to finally get a little more pace to run into. You think the rail draw is terrible, but he's going to take back anyway. I honestly would not be surprised if Hit Show finishes at the very least in the front half of the field. I think he's got top 5 potential. I'm not saying he's going to win, but I don't mind Hit Show. I'm going to say Hit Show.
He's been favored in every single race on his form.
That's because he's so good.
And he's going to be at least.
He's really a nice horse.
Indictment on the New York horses this year, really.
I mean, he might legitimately be the best 3-year-old horse, like in terms of the prep season, coming out of New York in 4 or 5 years. He is really good. He's a good horse, and he's had and his form is all sort of muddied up because of just terrible trips and bad pace setups. He's not bad. He is not a bad horse. Take another look at this horse. If you're playing supers, you're playing tries, I think you may want to consider this horse. I'm sorry, Christina Scott. I know you don't like this one. This one I like a little bit. All right, number 2, Verifying. I like him a little bit. Christina Scott. Let's start with Christina. Scott, go ahead.
Definitely interested. Not a lot of pace. I mean, the horse could work out a nice trip. Got a perfect jockey for it. You got Brad Cox. Plenty to like. At the prices you're going to get, if he's triple the price of Tap and Trice, I feel like Verifying had some excuses. I mean, I don't know. I'd definitely be in the mix for me. I don't know where yet. I've got a bunch of tough decisions to make, but I mean, definitely cannot dismiss the horse.
You have to respect his connections. I think that was the biggest point that you just made there. And Dan telling us about more of Will from the Inside Post made me think about it a little bit more. I know they wanted him to rate. I know they wanted him further off the pace. Brad Cox mentioned that. I think the Inside Post really hinders their ideal scenario, and he's going to be closer than they wanted. But I do think he keeps going. He's got the pedigree for it. He could definitely hit the board.
Nice. He ran well from close up last out. I wouldn't change things too much. I think he's, I mean, you know me, I'm like, you know, here I am. It's me or Brad Cox's opinion. So, I mean, you figure out which one's better. The 3 horse is 2 fills. This horse is a no for me. Christina?
Yeah, he's a no for me too. I want to like him, but I think the synthetic really moved him up. So unfortunately, getting back to the dirt, I'm not sure he's the same horse on the dirt.
Yeah, and you're gonna get some weird money coming in from everybody named Phil. This is a horse on my radar that I'm just waiting for some random bet to come in. I don't know. I have concerns. Larry Valley, Illinois connection, love that, but yeah.
Should we call all of our friends named Phil?
I mean, it's a concern. It's a concern.
Is this the one you were saying earlier? Like this was the name horse that you
This is one of the ones I'm worried about. I mean, I can see confidence game like we were talking about earlier, but I mean, there's a couple that I'm going to be on the lookout for when they start dropping for no reason. And I mean, anytime there's an actual name in the name, like it, I mean, all you had to be like my boy Jack. I mean, it just I'm on the lookout.
You know, it's funny. The one year, like there was like a decent horse with Dan in its name was Danza. And I was so against the horse because I was like, I'm not playing any horse with Dan in it just because people will think that that's why I bet the horse. And of course, he ran a couple like really big races and I had no money on him.
He wasn't
So
bad. You had a good run with Wise Dan on the turf.
Well, yeah, that's true. There was that little horse named Wise Dan.
He was
that's
okay.
True. Confidence game. What do we think? I'm not. He scares me, but only because he's one of maybe 3 horses who could completely blow up my theory of the race, which has Reincarnate on the lead alone, on a comfortable loose lead. I think Confidence Game could press him, and that would bother me. What do you think?
I think he'll be further off the pace because I think that's how Keith DeSormo likes his horses to run. I think he's ended up close at times, but I don't think that was by design. His work was phenomenal. I'll say his work was one of my favorite of the entire week. So I think he's going to run a big race. I don't know if it's good enough, but I don't know. Hats off to them for kind of sticking to their plan, bringing him in off the layoff. He couldn't look any better. I'll give him that.
Okay, Scott.
My concern is that the figure went way up in the slop. So like those horses, I always pause, but a little more work to do. And that is interesting that the horse is working well. Cause I mean, there were times where I thought this horse was talented. So I'm kind of going to go back. I can't say I'm using right now, but it's mostly just because of the huge jump up in figure and it's done in the slop. I'm not a fan of that, but it's beat me before. So you never know.
No, I'm on the same boat.
Only wins at the big prices too, right? Sorry, Dan. He only wins when he's 20, 30, 40 to 1 in these kind of spots.
Yeah.
I'm
on the same page with you, Scott, on Confidence Game. I don't know. Like I look at the other races, they're just not as good. And I don't know, maybe he's the real deal, but not for me. So number 5, Tapit Trice. I think we talked about this horse a little bit. I mean, look, the talent's there. I mean, the horse has won 4 in a row, like, and also has that sort of freakish thing to him where he looks, he's had some tough trips too, and he's managed to overcome them. And I feel like we're sort of dismissing him, but I don't know. You got to dismiss, a couple of these. I mean, Christina, what do you think?
I think he's on raw talent, one of the most talented in the field. I still think, to your point earlier, he's going to be the Belmont horse. If he was drawn 14, 15, 16, I might have ended up picking him on top. I really, really like this horse, but I think the Inside Post kills him. He has one of those big strides that gains in momentum. And if you stop that momentum, I don't think he has the agility to recover in a 20 horse field.
Scott, what do you think? Are you using him?
Defensively. And maybe underneath. I don't. Well, I don't plan on having too many tickets on top, just because I don't know. I mean, they paid a ton for him, but
Hmm.
I just there's talent. Like she said, the draw that is concerning, and I don't know. Maybe I'll come around, but I'd rather take verifying at a bigger price out of that race than to have a trace, I think.
I like that. I'm with that too. The 6 horse, very interesting. I think early in my handicapping, I dismissed him because I said, you know what, everyone thinks he's going to be on the lead, blah, blah, blah. This is not a speed horse. He can't get to the front. But then I'm like, what am I talking about? Like, I mean, the horse is won from off the pace. He's 3 for 3, like, hasn't done anything wrong. How silly am I being? And am I going to really just kind of not use him because he's done it so easily and he hasn't been challenged yet? I was talking to a friend today who was just like, yeah, like, I mean, you could have said the same thing about Justify. He wasn't challenged in his couple of starts before the Derby too. And he just, ran off and won that too. So I don't know. I don't know if this is Justify, but I think that it's a horse with a ton of talent. And the question is, how does he react, with when he deals with some adversity? What do you think, Christina?
I think to be this lightly raced, and I know he's 3 for 3, I think to come into the Kentucky Derby with that light on experience, you have to be an exceptional horse. You have to be a Justified type. And I just don't think he's that type. I think he's very talented. And I think there's a grade 1 out there with his name on it at some point, but I don't think it's this race. And I look at even his maiden, he broke his maiden first time out against Game Warden. Game Warden was not on the board yesterday in the maiden race. So I don't know who he's faced leading into the Louisiana Derby, and Disarm and Jace's Road are big prices in this race. So to me, his record can kind of fool you a little bit. I'm not sure he's exceptional, which I think you need to be to win in this scenario.
Yeah, I will say he did get nice setups in both those prior races, had a little bit of a pace to run into early and then kind of just, ran off. And again, I'm not sure who he beat in those first 2 races as well. Scott, you using this horse?
Reminds me of Maximum Security, and but if you think back, what actually was going on with Maximum Security, there's a reason why he was running better than those setups and figures and easy leads and all that crap that happened. So like, because I don't think this horse is going to get the same cocktail that morning, I am much more inclined to pass on this horse and kind of wait for better spots. Horses that, like you said, kind of go wire to wire, but are handed just such a soft pace, like, don't excite me at all for a race like this, because it's going to get really quick and you're going to get hounded, and all of a sudden an inexperienced horse might just get left like behind. And that's my fear here. And I know I say that in picking an inexperienced horse, but I'm going to be using a lot of horses, and Flavian chose Angel of Empire, and I'm going to much prefer Angel of Empire over this horse. So yeah. I agree with him.
Yeah, it's a good thing to point out too. And this horse sat without a jockey for a couple of days. I don't know if, what went into that whole process, but it seemed like when Flavian jumped off and went to Angel of Empire, it seemed like it was 2 or 3 days before they named Jose on him. So
I have a theory. If you're,
oh, you do? Let's hear it.
I think Todd wanted Johnny B. I think he was hoping Johnny B would flip.
Oh, that makes me feel better.
And he waited because that horse the California horse hadn't arrived yet. No, but he's not on the van. He's not on the plane. It's a long way to go.
Yeah,
and I think
makes sense.
Waiting to see, does he make the trip? Is he okay? Does he, any number of things can go wrong when you're traveling a horse.
Right.
I think he was waiting to make sure. And I know Johnny V had a commitment, but make sure that horse actually got to Churchill safely.
Right.
Or
that's a good
naming
theory.
Jose because he had Johnny in his back pocket if something went wrong.
Plus, Johnny knew he was on the Derby winner, so like, why jump off?
I mean,
that too.
Yeah, speaking of, number 7 is Reincarnate. We'll finish at least in the top 3 at 50 to 1. Well, maybe not at 50 to 1, maybe at 20 to 1. How insane am I, Scott?
I've already started the paperwork to take a line of credit out of my house. I'm going to take a reverse mortgage, and you guaranteed it. So is there insurance on this?
Just bet the show. Just put, just couple of.
I like your arguments. I mean, I'm concerned that the horses, just ran against several horses in the race and it hasn't beat any of them. But I mean, you made some good cases. I mean, it's the experience of Johnny V, and probably won't get 50 to 1. I mean, there's some things to like as far as like you said. I mean, you can get paid a ton in this race. I remember the one year I threw out a horse like this in the 4th spot of the trifecta, or in the superfecta. I think it was that Instilled Regard, the year Justify won.
Yeah.
And it was chalky, really chalky. Then all of a sudden he wins, and I tossed 4 horses out of the 4th spot like an idiot to save like $200 or $300 in my superfecta, and cost me 20 grand. I mean, these are the types of horses that if you have a strong opinion on, you need to key them in the underneath spots. And if you think he's going to stay, then I'm not going to argue with a horse like that. There's so much value in that.
I mean, realistically, when you think about the superfecta, there are probably only going to be about 5 horses, maybe 4 or 5 horses who make a sustained move from off the pace. So if you're on the front end, there's a good chance you're going to stay in the front half of the field. Worst case scenario, 3 or 4 horses pass you.
Unless you're gunning for the lead. I mean, yeah, you've got a lot of chance to stay. I mean, I like the idea a lot. I mean, I'm definitely going to use underneath. Too many win tickets. I mean, we'll see how clean I'm going into the race if I'm alive to a horse like that. But I mean, if I am, I would. I mean, I'll be rooting louder than you if I'm alive at that horse to pick 5.
All right, Christina, bring us back to reality. Come on.
No, honestly, he wasn't a horse I liked to begin with, but you sold me. I'll use him on tickets. He is the fastest horse. I do believe that to be true. And Johnny V loves to ride these kinds of horses on the lead. He's done it before. It's a scenario that I can see happening. He's not my top pick, but I will include him.
All right. I will say, for the folks who have Race Lens, go on, watch the replays, not even of the win, not even the sham stakes, which he was incredible, and which we look at the Arkansas Derby, look at the Rebel, look at the things he does. He's a really cool horse. He doesn't like letting horses go by. He knows what he has to do. All right, I'll stop. Mage, Scott likes Mage. I like Mage. Christina, do you like Mage?
Oh, I don't like Mage, but I could be really wrong. A lot of people like him. I'll tell you what I don't like about him. I don't know that he really wants a 1.25 miles. I look at him and I'm watching him train, and he has kind of a shorter neck. He's more compact. I don't think he strides out the way a lot of these horses do. And I think he kind of has to take 2 to their 1. And I'm not sure he's going to get there at a 1.25 miles with that much traffic and these many horses that really are physically designed for it. He's one I can't get behind, but so many people like him.
Oh, I have the same concern. I have the same concerns. I wrote 1 turn several times this year looking at him. I mean, that is my concern. If he just doesn't want to go that far, it's going to be over. That's why I'll never single. I share your concern there. I just couldn't find a horse I loved. So.
All right, we're a little mixed on Mage. I think Mage can be in the mix. I'd be surprised if he won, but I think he's certainly in the mix. I have the same exact feelings about the next horse, number 9, Skinner, a horse who gets a rider change to Juan Hernandez from Victor Espinoza after a couple of pretty wide trips in the 2 Derby preps, the San Felipe and the Santa Anita Derby. And for me, I don't know. Yes, he went wide, but I think he also, he flattened out pretty visibly in both those races. So if he saved a little more ground, which he's not going to anyway in this race, I mean, he's breaking from the 9 hole. He's a closer. He's going to have to close ground late and go wide. I don't know. I'm kind of mixed, but I do think he has he's really, I think in terms of the late pace, I think he's one of the fastest horses. So Scott, what do you think? Is he in your super or in that matrix at all?
Yeah, aggressive jockey upgrade. Honestly, the horse I liked the most out of the race is Mandarin Hero. I was really hoping Mandarin Hero would get in. That was going to be my pick. It's weird, but I like that horse a lot. But it's another one of those races you kind of just got to decide what to do with it. And if you're going to use, I would use probably Practical Move and Skinner. And if you're not, toss the race. I mean, there's value in that too. I'm leaning towards. I'm kind of in the middle on it right now, and I want to watch it a few more times and kind of listen to some of the stuff. But I have not eliminated yet, and I think you do get a jockey that's got a lot of confidence and might give you a nice ride. Uh-oh.
Did we lose you, Dan?
Go ahead. For a second. What do you
here.
Think about Skinner?
I'm going to jump in. I like the upgrade. Actually, it's not fair to say upgrade. I like the rider change to Juan Hernandez because I do think that Victor Espinoza doesn't really like to take horses to the inside. And I do think Skinner needs to save some ground. But I'm not sure he's really giving it his all. I think John Sheriff's style of training is a little bit more laid back, and he doesn't really ask horses for a lot. And I think this horse needs to be really asked to run, whether that's in the morning or in the afternoons. I don't think we're seeing his best yet, and I don't think that it's suddenly going to happen this weekend. I think he has the ability, but maybe down the line.
Just sticking on the West Coast, the 10-horse Practical Move, who I really, really loved in the San Felipe. I kind of got off him a little bit in the Santa Anita Derby because I thought, the slight bump to a mile and an eighth would do him in, and it almost did. I think a mile and a quarter is too much for him. That's my take on him. Christina?
I would agree. I think in general, the Practical Jokes are more one-turn horses. They're milers. I think this horse looks different than any other Practical Joke I've seen. And I kind of learned that lesson the hard way because I really doubted him in the Los Alfie when he was going a mile and a 16th. And that stretch is so long. To be able to sustain and to win a race there at 2 says a lot for his ability to go a mile and a quarter at 3. But I think in general, I'm not sure that the Southern California horses are as strong this year as some of the other parts of the country.
Scott, you like this horse at all?
I mean, it's just that trip. I mean, just beautiful. Got a beautiful rail trip. I mean, it's my concern there. That was just, it's not going to be that easy. Moves nicely, but I have distance concerns. I don't know. I'm not going to totally throw out, and it's kind of cool that Yuck Teams had this horse the whole time. It's a little bit different than whatever your nickname for the other Bafkeen or whatever you said. Yeah, so this is a little bit different than that. So might want shorter, but I don't know. Not going to be completely tossed.
You got to cut somewhere. I mean, for me, this was one that even though I've loved this horse, I'm trying to not stay emotionally attached to him. I love the Ramon Vasquez story as well. I mean, it'd be cool if he could win this race. There's a lot of cool stuff going on here. I just don't know that this is. I think it's a bit too long for him. So, anyhow, we go to the 11-horse Disarm. This is the horse who finished second. I thought made a really interesting move in Louisiana Derby. You mentioned Kingsbarns being loose on the lead. Jace's Road was sitting right off of him. Looked like they were going to run 1-2 all the way around, and the only horse to make up any ground was Disarm, and Disarm actually steadied early. It's not indicated here, but he did have some trip trouble early. He was very headstrong. The horse is interesting to me, but it's like, again, you've got to cut somewhere. He didn't do anything that spectacular, but he's obviously got a ton of ability. I don't know. Christina?
I don't think he's good enough yet. I think he's a horse that they're developing. I think that it says a lot that they've run him, 3 times now in the last, 6 or 7 weeks to get him to this point. But I don't think he's the horse yet. I mean, there's a Derby out there for Steve Asmussen. I want to see that happen for him, but I'm not sure this is the one.
Scott?
Yeah, it's Rosario. So he's going to finish. He's going to try. I mean, wouldn't shock me if he hits the board. I mean, if things fall apart a little bit, but I'm not sure he's there yet. I do like the double top occasionally. It's kind of like those pairing those 95. Sometimes you'll see a big forward move the next race, but like Christina said, the plan's been a little aggressive with how much the horses race for this day and age, where it's like, how much is the horse going to have for a race like this to really peak with the number you're going to need? Yeah, so I'm skeptical.
Right. Number 12, Be Nice, Jace's Road. We have a connection to this horse, America's Best Racing. He's part of our Stake in Stardom campaign that we're doing in partnership with West Point. Of course, the horse is owned by West Point and Albaugh Family Stables. And so we got Ian Rappaport, Joy Taylor, Lindsay Zarniak. They've got minority ownership in the horse, and so it's really exciting. We're going to be out there with them this weekend, recording with them. So hopefully we hope for a good result. But logically, we're not overly confident that Jace's Road is going to win the Kentucky Derby. Is he going to finish in the top half of the field? I don't know. Would you like to say anything positive, Christina?
Yeah, we'll root for him for you guys.
Are
you kidding me? Of course. I think he's another one that makes me think Belmont. Maybe not this part of the Triple Crown, but maybe another part.
They've got a journey with this horse for sure. Scott, you could just say no.
You said if I didn't have anything nice, not to say anything. Sorry, buddy. I do. I mean, if he gets bold, wants to go to the lead, I mean, you never know. You could get a fun trip. I mean, Drew can ride those types of horses really well. I mean, you can't completely ever just toss a Brad Cox horse without like taking another look. I mean, maybe those workouts are better than you think. I don't know. I like to get all the information by the end of the week, so not totally dismissing. I mean, there's stuff to like, but you're gonna get the price, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, look, he did show. I mean, he's not a horse who's like without any sort of ability, right? I mean,
Mhm.
he's there, he's tracking a horse like King's Barnes, and instead of getting discouraged and completely like plummeting through the field, I mean, he definitely hung in there, and he's got some races, right? Ran a nice gun runner as a 2-year-old, so we'll see. We're fingers crossed for Jason. I hope he runs a nice race. The 13 is Sun Thunder. This one will be a no for me, beaten by just about all these at one point or another. Scott, what do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree. Usually not a fan of horses also just like deciding to add blinkers for this caliber of a race either. It's usually not my favorite experiment. Yeah, I don't know. I just, like you said, we have to cut somewhere. Would not be shocked if there's another one though that I can see celebrities being like just screaming "Sun Thunder" like just for no reason at all, just like think it's an awesome name. I watch out, watch for this one too.
It sounds like a song like from the Chainsmokers, and they're all
Yeah,
like,
Exactly.
I get to see it. You only need a few people on board, and then people start yelling it. I mean,
I love
especially if
how
there's a little bit of those two things going on. I mean,
I love how Scott has this like parodied vision of like celebrity behavior. Like everything is to the extreme.
well, you
It's
watch them on TV. I mean, they're not real people. They don't know. I mean,
it's
they
so
live
like
these,
funny.
they
us.
live very fake lives.
Love it. Christina, it's a no on Sun Thunder as well.
It's a no, but I will say Brian Hernandez Jr. is one of my favorite jockeys in the country, and he will give this horse his best chance to get
He's
a
good.
if
Yeah,
he's
he's good.
enough. I mean, Brian's one of the best, especially at Churchill.
He is
All
good. I can't argue
Yeah,
with that.
I like him as well, especially, I mean, up for McPeak. I mean, he's going to probably win at least 1 or 2 other races up for McPeak at some point this weekend. So look for that combo. 14 Angel of Empire. I think we all said yes, right?
Oh,
When we
yeah.
covered this earlier, we're all yes. We're all Angel of Empire.
I mean,
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
He's so many people I respect, like, and now add Christina to that are on this horse. I love Flavian, obviously. I mean, I always pick Flavian. I worry that it's second choice, but I mean, I'm all over this horse. There's just no way. I mean, it's a co-A. If I don't add any others, I mean, this would be the other horse I'm for sure using, and a lot more confident with the experience and improving figures. I mean, there's a lot to like about this horse.
Yeah, he's gonna be, he's an exciting horse because like I feel like it's between him and then we can move on to 15 Forte. I think if either of the two of them win, you get that real excitement going into the Preakness because they're the two with some, the real clear cut ability in this race. Forte, I think we all respect, but we've kind of highlighted some flaws. I mean, I'm going to use Forte on tickets. I don't think that he's definitely, I can't make enough of a case against him to say he's not going to hit the board. Scott, it sounds like you might. I mean, I don't know. You have some concerns about him.
Well, I mean, if I like Mage, I like Forte. I mean, Forte still
Right.
like came right back at him. You don't know if Forte was fully cranked for that race, probably not.
Right.
And also, just Forte has got a lot of talent. I mean, when you don't have to do a lot, sometimes you haven't seen that horse's best. I mean, I don't love the running style, but I mean, could end up running closer than you think and great connections. I'm not leaving him off, especially. I mean, I'm not letting this horse beat me in the exact or the try, and I certainly won't be. If not an A, I mean, it'll be like a B+ for me in my horizontals because there's just no way I'm getting beat by this horse. I just at the price you're gonna get, it's not my I'm usually more enthusiastic about the Derby favorite, and this is not one of those times, but could win very easily.
Yeah. I mean, look, I thought there was an argument to be made. I mean, even just like listening to what you were saying that he maybe he wasn't fully cranked, but maybe that's like who he is now. Like, I mean, he's he's kind of like leveling out as what he is, but we'll see. I mean, maybe there's another step forward in him. Maybe he does thrive with some added distance. I don't know if that's necessarily the case, but I don't think he has to because even on raw ability, I think he still hits the board with a decent enough trip. Christina?
Yeah, I mean, I think I did some social media segments for our corporate office, and I called him the Patrick Mahomes of horse racing. I think you look at some of his races and he has had trouble, and you look at the Florida Derby and it looked like he wasn't going to get there, and then somehow he pulls it off. And in the end, he actually won that race pretty easily. I don't think we've ever seen him all out, but so I'll use him for everything because I do think he's very talented. But on the flip side, he lost his mind in the Florida Derby. He was so hot and washy, and I've watched him school even today. And Todd Pletcher took the shank himself and was trying to get this horse to pay attention. The other part of me wouldn't be surprised if the Derby atmosphere and crowd completely undoes him and he unwinds and he runs up the track. Honestly, I think there's two extreme scenarios with forte for me.
So something to look for. Yeah. If you are betting from home, keep an eye on, you know, the TV coverage there and kind of shot of Forte in the paddock and then on the track, and just, you know, to the best of your ability, try to make some sense of his behavior, even though that in and of itself can be an inexact science. So we'll see. We move on to the 16 horse, another long shot. Now this is one similar to Hit Show. If I like another big price to kind of fill out a super, this is a horse I want in the mix. Like, you know, it doesn't look like he did much in the Bluegrass, but actually he did finish up pretty well. I like the way he finished up, and he was pretty far off of it, and made a decent move. And then the Gotham Stakes. I don't know if you all like seen the Gotham Stakes, if you watch a replay of it. He ran this like insanely impressive race. Like he broke from the 12 post, settled in way off the back. The pace was honest, but he steadied. He tipped out just as he gets it all together. You know, he starts, you know, kind of picking off horses one by one. He ends up winning by 7.5 lengths, and he did it at 23-1. Now, granted, it was the Gotham Stakes over a muddy track. It's probably worth very little, but you know, I don't know. A lot of these horses are going to be backing up, and this is one of these horses that I have no doubt is going to be, I don't say no doubt, but I have a decent amount of confidence is going to be kind of making a move late. I see him like top 7 or 8, you know, could potentially finish 4th if everything goes well. I'm not completely out on him. I'm a maybe on him. Christina, you look skeptical.
I think you're generous. I mean, I don't know. I don't think he's fast enough.
Yeah.
I don't think he's fast enough, but it's the Derby. Crazier things have happened. Rich Strike last year.
Yep.
He will be running late. He'll pick up some pieces, but I don't know if those pieces are good enough for, you know, 6th or 16th.
Yeah. Scott, that looks like a no from you, correct?
Yeah. Rosario chose disarm over this horse. I mean that. Nah.
Enough said. Dermot Sotogake is the 17 horse. I like him a little bit. I think he's going to be right there. I think he's going to be sitting right off of Reincarnate, and I think he's going to make a move. He's going to have every shot to win the race. Would be really, really surprised if he doesn't finish in the front half of this field.
I think he's freaky good. I think he could do it. I really, really do. I would prefer if he was drawn more to the inside, because I think if you watch that UAE Derby where he popped the gate and just went gate to wire and then rebroke, that race is good enough. That performance to me is good enough to win this Derby and a lot of Derbies, but I'm not sure if he gets that trip from the 17 post, but he'll be on my tickets. He could do it. I think he's easily the best horse Japan has ever brought.
Scott, you like him?
17 is my favorite number of all time, and it's not close. And it's never won the Derby. Tis the Law obviously broke my absolute heart because it was on my bachelor party, and like the horse can't win from the 17. It just feels like maybe there is a curse. I don't know, but debating moving this horse all the way up to an A. I need to watch more and listen to more people who make figures, because I don't make my own figures. So it's just harder to get information, but there's plenty to like. Just debating between the A and the B in the horizontals, but I will definitely have this horse on a lot of tickets.
Cool. Yeah, getting those UAE Derby splits is a little tough. They're not like publicly posted. They're like all different estimates people have made. But anyhow, no, I think either way, like I think he's going to be pretty forwardly placed, and he looks legit. So the 18 Rocket Can, horse finished 4th in the Arkansas Derby, 2nd in Fountain of Youth. Again, beaten by several of these. Not anybody I'm especially interested in. Christina?
Yeah, not really for me. I mean, I think, Belmont's tinkering. He's putting the blinkers on. He's trying to get more out of him. But it would take a pretty big move up for him to win a race like this.
Yeah. Scott?
Yeah, everything she said. Blinkers on, tells me everything I need to know. Yeah. I don't know. It's just not for me.
Okay, Lord Miles is number 19, Wood Memorial winner at 59-1. A lot going on here. I mean, I'll just say I don't think it's possible. It's just a no for me.
Yeah, I don't think so, but he is getting better with distance. Maybe he's another one of those Belmont types, save that for a little bit further down the line.
Scott, same.
Yeah, Safi outside of Florida again is another reason. There's just a lot to dislike here.
Yeah.
Don't have much interest.
Cool. And the last one is Continuar. This horse ran with Dermasotogake. He was beaten by him 3 times. Is there any reason to think he turns the table on Dermasotogake in attempt number 4 in the US showdown? Christina.
I don't think so. I mean, if you saw them work together, Dermasotogake just, I mean, it's actually a move. Have you seen the Dermasotogake? They like slam him down on the ground. It's a sumo wrestling move. He did that to him in the work. He's going to have no chance in my eyes of even flipping the tables on his country mate.
Yeah.
On the rest of the field. But
yeah,
Yoshida Yahagi won 2 Breeders' Cups this year. I mean, this guy, he's not coming over for the mint juleps. Like, he's winning races all over the world.
Yeah. Me and Scott are. We're definitely coming for the mint juleps. What do you think? Any using this horse deep on 4th leg, 4th,
No.
supers deep down?
And mint juleps taste horrible. It's one of the biggest scams. One of the biggest scams. I was so disappointed. I started drinking lilies at the Derby that one time. So I was like,
everyone says you got to just drink the lilies. I think they just, the lily people, like their marketing is just not as good. They haven't done the same, they haven't, like you think about avocado, right? Like avocado, the people who marketed avocados are brilliant, right? Like avocados are so mainstream, but there's so many other great vegetables out there that nobody talks about. It's because avocado is good marketing. Like with lilies, they don't have good marketing, and the mint julep people do a great job of just pushing it out there. So I'll stop. Anyway,
what did I do there?
You're spot on. I'm thinking of other like good vegetables that need a better marketing team.
Broccoli I feel was big when we were growing up, but like you don't hear about broccoli anymore. Broccoli's still phenomenal. I mean, it gives you stomach problems, I guess.
Great.
Yeah, like cauliflower is great. Parsnip.
We're talking about this.
Anyway, okay, we'll stop. So if you've enjoyed this, bar the last segment here, you can always sign up for Racelands, and now would be the time because there are special promos going on Kentucky Derby week. An unlimited Raceland subscription is available for just $1. New customers can use promo code RLM1S. That'll give you a month-long subscription to Racelands for just $1. And then again, you could get a quarterly subscription, unlimited, for $99. One price, $99. You get the entire quarterly subscription using promo code TCRL99. All right, it's been a lot of fun. I've been dragging it out because even though I'm super tired, and I know my my counterparts here are super tired, it's a lot of fun. So I don't want to end it, but we have to end it. And wishing everyone good luck. Christina, thank you so much for making time for this. Scott, thank you so much.
Of course, it's always a good time.
All right, let's win some money this weekend. For Christina and Scott, I'm Dan. We will see you next time.